Okay, in this tutorial we're going to take a look at how to use Adobe Illustrator to create line work as if it was inked lines on a cartoon face drawing. So we're going to start off by creating a print document. We're going to adjust the size of the area first. We're going to use inches. Always switch to inches because sometimes we understand those better. And I'm going to go 10 by 10. And you may not have this advanced area open up. So open up the advanced. Make sure you're using RGB color and 300 pixels per inch. Now I'm going to click OK, and it's going to make my document. Okay, I always like to start off with the same area, so I go up to Essentials up the Workspace menu, and I choose Essentials. And just to remind you, I can use this button here, the little arrow, to open up all the panels, or what I usually do is open up one panel at a time. And I like to use the Layers panel, so I'm going to keep that one open and available. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import using Place. I'm going to go find the pictures that I scanned from paper, and let's see, they're in my computer, and I put them on a USB drive, and they're in the scanned pictures folder. And let's see, I'm going to choose this one right here. I did 3 of them, and if you're doing this for my class, you'll have 3 to pick from. Now this isn't quite big enough, so I'm going to hold down Shift, use the selection tool, and stretch up the size a bit. Normally you're going to lose quality with this if you stretch up a bitmapped image, but the end result is not a bitmap, so we're not going to worry about that too much. So I'm going to try to center that. And I don't want to crowd the edges too much. I want to have some decent margin between the edges of my canvas, or the edge of my artboard, and the active areas of the picture. So with that in there, I want to lock that layer. I might even double click it and rename it. Let's call this Sketch. Naming layers is a good thing because then you know what's on them. I'm also going to dim the images by 50%. And dimming images will essentially take any bitmapped image that's in there and reduce it to 50% opacity. So it looks like this. And the reason I do that is I want to make it easier to see the lines I'm going to draw. Now I'm going to do my line work on a separate layer. So I click New Layer. I'm going to name this Line, and I'm good to go. Alright. Now we're going to start off using the pencil tool. The pencil tool is not very interesting to look at. It's not a real handsome tool, but what we're going to do at the end is use a nice thick stroke, maybe 3 or 2. And my goal here is to use the pencil tool on my line layer, separate from my sketch layer, and I'm going to draw with this, with the pencil tool, to create my lines. Now I'm going to draw with this now, knowing that I can adjust this as I see fit. Let's move that one over. And I'm using the direct selection tool. Okay. And I'm just going to keep working this out one piece at a time. Now one thing that can happen, if I'm not careful, is I can wind up extending a line just like I just did. Let's watch that again. Like this. I mean, that's not really what I wanted. I want separate lines. So what I might do instead is I might start over here and go up to it. And so that's going to overlap. Another thing I can do is click on the selection tool, deselect by clicking on nothing, and then get the pencil again and draw the line again. Now it's pretty rare that I'm going to wind up doing this perfectly, especially since I'm drawing with a mouse. You can also do this with a tablet, Wacom tablet, a Bamboo or a Graphire or an Intuos. And as I adjust these points, I'm just trying to get it to look close to the way I want. Now, that's the nice thing about drawing in Illustrator with my line work, is that I can make some mistakes and I can get it in perfectly, but I can still fix it up afterwards. As if I was to fix this on ink, on paper, it'd be a lot of work to fix those lines. Now, I find myself being a bit lazy sometimes, and I want symmetry in this case. So I'm going to take this, hold down Alt and Shift, and drag that over. Okay. And now I'm going to choose Object. I'm going to choose Transform, Reflect, and Reflect is just a fancy word for flip it over through a vertical axis. So the axis it's going to flip it through is a vertical line, which means it's going to fold the other way. Voila. Okay. And I want to try to look at the spacing. I'm going to adjust this to be exactly the way I want it to. Okay, so making some adjustments is not necessarily going to be exactly like the sketch, but it should be somewhere in the vicinity. Okay, so you can make some adjustments. And I'm going to do the same thing with the ear. So some things that may be hard to draw You can copy them and alt drag them to make a copy, and then flip them or reflect them through the vertical axis. And so now I've got symmetrical ears. Alright, get the pencil tool, make some eyebrows. Sometimes it's handy to zoom in. And that didn't come out very good. Control Z is undo. So whenever it doesn't go the way I want, I will undo it. I want this a nice, straight, expressive line. And as you can see, I keep making mistakes. I lost my eyebrow. I Control Z'd twice. So I'm closer in here. I'm going to make a more expressive eyebrow shape. There's the top of the eye. This guy is what we got, what we used to call beady eyes. Beady eyes. Let's see. Let me click on this to deselect it because I was drawing onto it and it kept adding to the old line. There we go. Now they're separate. Okay, now as I said, I'm a bit on the lazy side sometimes. You can call it efficient, you can call it whatever you want. Sometimes I'll say that I'm cheating it, but what I'm really doing is I'm finding an efficient way to get the job done. So I did alt drag to copy that, and now I'm going to reflect it through the vertical axis. Alright. Yeah, you know, I kind of want the way I sketched it, because sometimes symmetry in eyes is not entirely what I'm going for. Because you have asymmetry, you have a little more expression in the look. Okay, so alt drag, and you can draw them separately, or you can copy them. And that was an alt drag to make the eyebrow copy. Reflect it through the vertical axis, and we can take two eyebrows that are symmetrical and the same, and adjust them to get the look we want. Now I got this one. Let's see. This creates the muzzle area of the face. Now right now these lines are all pretty unattractive and symmetrical, and they're all the same. What I'm going to want eventually is some more expressive look. So here's what it looks like sort of finished. You know, and notice it's not always exactly like the original sketch, but it should be relatively close. Let's turn off the sketch and take a look. And that looks okay. Looks alright. So what I need to do next is I want to make the lines more expressive. I don't want them to be red. So if I select all of them and I change the line color to black, the stroke color, and the stroke color is different than the fill color. Okay, the stroke color has the box around it like this. That's the outline. And this is a center line shape. And if I choose the brush panel, normally this brush may not appear for you. And where that is in the artistic ink brush library. That's the very last one in there. Very last one. There it is. So now that all looks pretty uniform, and we want different lines. So what I'm going to do, let me go back to my brush panel here. So now that line is in my library, and I'm going to get rid of a couple of brushes that are in there that I'm just to clean up my brush library. If you get a bunch of stuff in there that you've been trying, if you're not using a particular brush, you can get rid of it real easy that way. So what I want to do is I want to change the thickness of some of these brushes. Okay, so what we have is line dominance. Okay, and lines call attention to themselves. We want to have the outline be the thickest lines in there. So some of the lines I'm going to reduce, especially these muzzle lines on the edge of the face that give definition to the area around the mouth. I'm going to drop those down to 0.5. And let's see, the mouth, the outline of the face. Look. Let me think. Hair. I want the hair to have a lighter outline. Now, the hair is kind of the outline, but we really want to look at the face. I might take this line and make it a 0.75. Okay, now notice what I got out of that by using this particular brush, this tapered end brush, tapered stroke. They're pointed on the ends, and I actually want a little bit more gradual of a taper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the line tool, I'm going to make a line, and I'm going to, so there's that same line, big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and make a different brush with it. So I choose the line, and I choose expand appearance, changes from a center line shape to an outline shape. And what I can do now is if I stretch this out, let me move it over. My goal is to make this a more expressive brush. So I want a nice long taper at the end. And you can actually make several different kinds like this. And I'm just using the arrow key to move it over. Let's take a look. Okay, now I'm going to take that line that I just made. It's not actually a line, that's an outline shape, but my goal is to make a brush into it that'll be a centerline shape. So I drop it onto the brushes panel. This pops open. I want to choose a new art brush right here. Click OK. Give me some options. Now, let's see. I want this to be an art brush. I want it to be proportional. Let's see. It should be going left to right when you draw it. Don't do one that's up and down. And click OK. So now, if I choose this and I choose that line, you can see the difference between the two lines I made. So this one's actually going to need to be thicker to make it work. So I still want a thick outline, but notice that the taper on the edge, on the ends, is a little bit more gradual and less extreme, which looks kind of good, I think. I'm going to do the same thing on the nose. Choose that one. Okay, this is looking good. I'm happy. And let's choose that one again. And this may or may not be the place where I want to use it, and I can always switch back. Again, that's the benefit of using Illustrator to do my line work with, is I can choose those lines and change them really quickly and easily. Let's do the same thing with his eyebrows. I'm going to stick with this one, but I'm going to cut the outline down to about 0.5. Okay, so these are all going to help us create expressive. I'm going to keep the eyes kind of thick. The places where you want to put thicker lines, definitely on the outline and sometimes on the interior lines if they're important things like eyes or defining facial features. Let me cut this one down to 0.5. In fact, let me go to this other line here at the original size, a little bit thicker apparently. Okay, so that line is just supposed to define the shape of the ear. It's not so much about the numbers I'm trying to apply as it is about what's it look like. So as we're doing them, we have to pick sizes that look the way we want it to look. Okay, so in the next one we're going to see how to color this in Adobe Photoshop. And I'm going to keep working with this until I like the way it looks. And I've got a nice expressive face feature. Let's do a couple more things here. And we're ready for color next. So the next video will be about how to do color in Photoshop on your line work that you did in Illustrator.